Eric Shaw was a disciplined college runner who vanished mid-jog on a sunny morning in 2019. His GPS stopped, but no one could say why. Behind his disappearance stood a drifter with a violent past, hiding in plain sight and leaving only fragments buried beneath moss, rock, and water. 3 years later, a dog's instinct and a diver's forgotten journal would bring those fragments to light, and with them, Eric's voice. This is the true story of how silence was broken. The forest gave him back, and justice finally caught up. On the morning of September 8, 2019, the air in the foothills of Oregon's Santiam State Forest was dry and cool, 60 feet 1 degree fours and climbing. The sun had just crested over the Douglas firs when Eric Shaw, a 20-year-old college athlete and kinesiology major at Corban University, set out for a routine 6-mile run. His GPS watch logged a 6:42 a.m. start time from his dorm, tracking his pace as he moved east along Route 22 and toward the trailhead of the Stack Creek Loop. It was a Sunday. The campus was quiet, the roads emptier than usual, and Eric, always precise with his runs, told his roommate he'd be back before breakfast. He was wearing a light blue Nike dry-fit shirt, gray compression shorts, and fluorescent yellow trail shoes. His last phone activity was at 6:44 a.m., a text to his older sister reading, "Out early, clearing my head." She didn't respond until hours later. At 8:19 a.m., campus security received a call from Eric's RA. Eric had missed a team brunch. His roommate, a little concerned, mentioned that Eric never skips training days or meals. By 9:07 a.m., 2 teammates retraced his route by car, stopping near the Stack Creek trailhead, where his last GPS ping was marked. His pace tracker had frozen there, 3.1 miles in. At 9:26 a.m., the first 911 call was placed. Dispatch log, September 8, 2019. Caller: "Yes, hi, we've got a student missing. He went out for a run this morning and didn't come back. We're at Stack Creek Trailhead. His GPS stopped here. His name is Eric Shaw." Dispatch: "Okay, how long has he been missing?" Caller: "Almost 3 hours now. This is not like him." Dispatch: "Any medical conditions? Drugs, depression?" Caller: "No, none. He's stable. He's an athlete." Dispatch: "Understood. We're dispatching a patrol now. Stay at the trailhead. Don't go in." Deputy Laura Gunderson with the Marion County Sheriff's Office arrived at 9:54 a.m., marking the perimeter with hazard tape and logging fresh boot prints on the south edge of the trail. Eric's scent was not immediately traceable. No dropped phone, no discarded gear. But his GPS signal, which used a Koros Apex unit, had gone offline abruptly, not faded. By 11:12 a.m., a K9 unit was on scene. By noon, search and rescue had laid out the initial quadrant, a 0.75-mile radius from the GPS stop. No sign of wildlife disturbance, no overturned brush, just stillness. One rescuer, writing later in his report, noted, "It was as if he evaporated. We saw the path where he ran, and then nothing." Eric's parents, Carla and Dean Shaw, drove from their home in Eugene, arriving at the command tent just after 2 p.m. They described their son as hyper-disciplined, no history of rebellion or impulsiveness. "Eric was not the type to wander," Carla said, "and he would never ghost us. Never!" As dusk approached, temperature dipped to 55 degrees. The trail was combed again by flashlight, but with no evidence of a struggle, the case teetered on ambiguity. Voluntary disappearance? Foul play? A mountain lion, perhaps? But wildlife officers ruled out a cougar within hours. No blood, no drag marks, no fur, no scat. "Predators don't take only shoes," one officer noted flatly. The cliffhanger came at 6:11 p.m., when Deputy Gunderson radioed back after examining Eric's Strava data synced to his iPad. His last recorded heart rate jumped, 88 BPM to 147 BPM, in the span of 14 seconds. Then flatlined. No drop-off, no gradual decline. It was as if something, or someone, had ended his run instantly. By sunrise on September 9, 2019, 24 hours after Eric Shaw failed to return from his run, the Santiam State Forest had transformed from a peaceful hiking corridor into the nucleus of an active missing persons investigation. Command post tents lined the parking lot at Stack Creek Trailhead. Maps were unrolled. Radios were calibrated. And on each volunteer's vest, one word stood out in bold black: searcher. Sheriff's deputies from Marion and Lynn counties worked alongside the Oregon State Police, mapping a precise 1.2-mile radius centered on the last GPS coordinate, 44.7527 degree N, 122.4695 degree UW. By 7:45 a.m., the K-9 unit was redeployed with new scent articles from Eric's laundry hamper. Dogs detected a partial trail, a northeast divergence off the main Stack Creek loop, but it cut out after 300 feet at a dry wash. One boot print was logged at that spot, but it was inconsistent. Not a trail runner's. Heavy, wide-soled, possibly work boots. Patrol radio log 0909-2019-0822, HRS Unit 32, Gunderson. Boot print 300 northeast, single, no match to victim footwear. Command: mark GPS, flag it, photograph all tread impressions. Unit 32. Copy that. No other depressions. Dry terrain. No drag marks. As temperatures rose to 67 degrees, air support launched. A Marion County Bell 407 helicopter ran 5 sweeps using forward-looking infrared, FLIR. No heat signatures off-trail. However, the FLIR Tech model Star Sapphire 380 HDC did detect unusual ground temperature differential behind a line of fallen timber. It was dismissed initially as residual solar heat. Later, that anomaly would prove vital. On the ground, volunteers and college teammates pushed deeper into the terrain. By 2 p.m., 63 people had joined the search. A grid was drawn using orange flags every 20 feet. Hikers combed ravines and brush thickets. At 2:46 p.m., a water bottle, blue Nalgene, cracked, was discovered near the edge of a gully, 0.6 miles from the last GPS point. It matched one Eric often carried, but no prints were nearby, and no DNA could be lifted from the plastic surface due to exposure and handling by multiple volunteers before it was logged. The press got wind by mid-afternoon. A local NBC affiliate broadcast a live shot from the trailhead at 4 p.m., interviewing Sheriff Don Kirsch, who said, "We're treating this as an urgent, active investigation. We are not ruling out any possibility, but time is critical." When asked about leads, "We have physical items we're examining. I can't say more." At 5:22 p.m., another clue emerged, subtle, almost missed. A crushed patch of grass and broken pine needles, roughly 15 feet off the trail. Investigators cordoned it off but found no blood, no fibers, no phone. Still, one volunteer swore he saw something move just past the ridge. Thermal scans resumed. Nothing. That night, Eric's roommate gave detectives access to Shaw's running app history. His pattern was like clockwork, always finished by 7:15 a.m. Every route logged, analyzed, and saved. But on September 8th, something deviated. Eric had taken a branch trail he'd never used before. Why? A behavioral analyst brought in from Salem suggested if he was being chased, this is exactly where he'd veer. It's instinct. Off-path equals less visibility, but it also means more danger. On the second night, a storm rolled in. Wind gusts reached 22 mph. Drone coverage was suspended. Volunteers were called back. Before turning in, Sheriff Kirsch walked the search tent and looked at the terrain map again. He pointed to one shaded patch, just past the FLIR anomaly. "Recheck this sector in the morning," he said quietly. "Bring a shovel." The investigation was now racing against time and rain. Comment: hope if you'd search forever. September 10th, 2019. At 6:03 a.m., teams gathered under floodlights at the Stack Creek command tent. The overnight storm had passed, but it left behind slick underbrush, fallen branches, and one bitter truth. Time was slipping away. With every hour, the odds of finding Eric Shaw alive were shrinking. Search perimeter expansion was authorized at 6:30 a.m. The new grid, a 2.5-mile radius east of the original GPS stop. 3 new topographical zones were prioritized: Ridge 2A, the dry wash, and the FLIR anomaly that had been flagged but not excavated. Sheriff Kirsch signed off the order. Shovel detail to FLIR zone. Immediate dig protocol. By 7:15 a.m., Volunteer crews had grown to over 100, including trained SAR techs from 3 counties. The terrain made progress agonizing. Mud, exposed roots, and unstable inclines turned a standard 45-minute sweep into a 3-hour crawl. A new sound entered the landscape. Rotors. At 8:02 a.m., Oregon State Police deployed an AeroVironment Puma 3 AE drone with high-res optical and IR scanning. The drone operator, logging footage live to a tablet, noted something unexpected near Ridge 2A, a blue flash in the tree line. Static, faint, but visible. It was a race to get boots on the ground before weather shifted again. Meanwhile, back at base, Detective Valerie Hines pulled archived footage from a nearby trailhead's wildlife cam, model Reconyx Hyperfire 2, mounted on a utility post half a mile from Stack Creek. Time-stamped 6:58 a.m. on September 8th, it showed Eric, shirt damp with sweat, gait steady, pushing uphill. No signs of distress. But just 47 seconds later, a second figure entered frame, blurry, farther back. Tall, heavier build, wearing what looked like a dark hoodie and hiking pack. Hines froze the image. Zoomed. No face, no emblem, just motion. And then gone. "Who the hell is that?" she whispered. By 10:22 a.m., the excavation crew reached the FLIR zone. It wasn't what they expected. Just dirt. Cool. Compact. But something about the smell, faint, sour, earthy, made one deputy call for a cadaver dog. The dog responded in under a minute, alert posture, ears up, nose down. "Mark it. All hands. We're digging." While excavation teams assembled, the drone continued scanning Ridge 2A. At 11:17 a.m., the operator called out, "There, pause playback. That's it." A flash of yellow among the leaf litter, faint but rectangular, possibly synthetic, possibly part of a shoe. Ground crews moved fast, climbing to the coordinates, 44.7539° N, 122.4718W. It was steep, loose rock, 15% grade. At 11:52 a.m., they found it. One fluorescent yellow running shoe, Nike Terra Kiger 4, untied, partially buried under pine needles and damp moss. Inside, dirt, twigs, but no blood. Lab testing would later confirm the shoe's serial number matched a pair purchased by Eric 3 weeks earlier. News clip. Local Channel 7. 6:00 p.m. broadcast. The discovery of what may be Eric Shaw's running shoe was made earlier today in a remote section of the Santiam forest. Investigators say the item is being treated as potential evidence. The search area is once again expanding, and authorities urge anyone with information to come forward. But there was no phone, no second shoe, no body. The item raised more questions than it answered. Why only one? Why buried? And why 0.4 miles uphill from where the signal stopped? Back at the excavation zone, shovels hit something. Not bone, not plastic. Fabric. A thin, dirt-streaked drawstring bag. It contained 3 protein bars, 1 crushed water gel packet, and a pair of wireless earbuds. The battery was dead, but one earpiece bore the initials ES in permanent marker. Forensic techs began cataloging both sites. "We're close," one deputy whispered to another. "He's not far." But daylight was fading. The ridge was unsafe in the dark. Crews pulled back. Radios went quiet. Only the wind spoke in the trees, cold, sharp, and full of silence. By September 11th, 2019, Day 4, the Eric Shaw case had gone national. CNN aired a 90-second segment that morning. By noon, hashtags were trending. Chuck Find Eric Shaw, Chuck's Trail Runner Missing, Chuck's Stack Creek Mystery. Candlelight vigils were organized at Corban University and in Eric's hometown of Eugene. Journalists swarmed the Santiam command post. Helicopter news crews hovered low, disrupting drone operations. For investigators, the search area had become a media zoo, but they couldn't afford to stop, especially not now. The discovery of Eric's shoe and personal items had ignited public interest. Tip lines flooded with calls, 100 new voices. Most were well-meaning. Some were not. One call, however, stood out. Tip line call, logged 09/11/1431. HRS caller. "I saw someone running that morning. It wasn't Eric." Dispatch. "When and where, ma'am?" Caller. About 7:10 a.m., maybe? He came out of the trail near that old ranger cabin, looked panicked, not dressed for hiking. Dispatch. Can you describe him? Caller. White male, 30s, hoodie, limping. Dispatch. Did you talk to him? Caller. He wouldn't make eye contact. Just kept walking fast toward the road. Detective Valerie Hines flagged the call immediately. The old ranger cabin, decommissioned in 2013, sat less than 200 yards from the shoe site. A crew was dispatched. They found the structure still boarded, surrounded by overgrowth. But someone had been there recently. A cigarette butt on the windowsill, freshly stepped pine needles, and on the ground, a discarded energy drink can. Monster Zero Ultra. Partial print. Smudged, but liftable. At 4:55 p.m., another witness emerged, a man named Trevor Lyles, 43, local mechanic, self-described amateur survivalist. He approached the press line directly, claiming to have seen Eric arguing with a man in the early hours of September 8th. Tall guy, shaved head, camo pants, could have been military, real aggressive energy. I was out scouting trails. I saw it. Reporters swarmed him. Footage of Lyles ran on 3 networks within the hour. But behind closed doors, detectives were unconvinced. Lyles had no alibi for his own whereabouts on the morning in question. He owned multiple trail cams, none of which he turned over voluntarily, and his phone data revealed no location history for the Stack Creek area. When pressed, his story shifted. "Might have been a dream," he muttered under questioning. "Sometimes they get real vivid." The lead collapsed. Another dead end. Later that evening, at 7:22 p.m., a news chopper captured live aerial footage of Ridge 2A. Observers online spotted something the drone team hadn't, what looked like a small pile of disturbed soil next to a fallen log. Within minutes, Reddit threads exploded. Users began theorizing in real time, triangulating the coordinates from footage metadata. Some accused local law enforcement of dragging their feet. Others suggested government cover-ups. A few fixated on a serial offender theory, citing unsolved disappearances across the Pacific Northwest from the past decade. Detective Hines had seen this pattern before. "A false witness can kill more time than a storm," she told reporters during a closed briefing. "We chase fiction. The real trail goes cold." To complicate matters, a hiker turned in a torn running bib with the number 137, supposedly found hanging on a branch 5 miles northeast. But it wasn't from Eric. It belonged to a different race entirely, held 6 months prior. Yet the press reported it anyway. The damage was done. By nightfall, Sheriff Kirsch imposed a soft lockdown on public communications. Only verified findings would now be announced. The noise was too loud, the case too fragile. "We have one priority," he said firmly. "Find Eric. Everything else is static." But inside the forest, the silence returned, deeper now, heavier. And the man from the trail cam photo? Still unidentified. In the weeks after Eric Shaw vanished, search efforts waned under the weight of exhaustion, confusion, and dead ends. By October 2019, official activity in the Santiam State Forest had slowed to a crawl. Evidence was boxed, labeled, and archived at the Marion County Evidence Lockup. The trailhead remained closed, but the urgency was gone. And like so many disappearances in remote regions, the case slipped from headlines. But for the Shaw family, the silence was unbearable. They launched their own campaign, flyers, vigils, a dedicated website, finderic.org. Dean Shaw, Eric's father, left his job to focus on the case full-time. He kept a war room in the garage, maps pinned to corkboards, photos arranged in timeline order, and lists of possible suspects. Carla Shaw appeared on daytime TV shows, always with the same phrase, "We just want him home." On the 1-year anniversary, September 8, 2020, the family hosted a community run in Eric's honor, 6 miles, just like the one he disappeared on. Over 300 participants showed up. The local news covered it, briefly, but national outlets had already moved on. Detective Valerie Hines, too, had been reassigned. Budget cuts and new cases pulled resources elsewhere. The Shaw file, now over 3,000 pages thick, sat in the cold case vault under identifier, MSO 190928ES. Every month, Carla called the sheriff's office. Anything new? And every time, we're still reviewing leads. But there were no new leads, not credible ones. Until year 2. In April 2021, a hiker in Tillamook State Forest, 50 miles northwest, found a zippered pouch half buried under a tree. Inside, earbuds, wrapped gum, and a broken GPS clip. The pouch didn't match anything from Eric's known possessions, but the earbuds were the same model, Sony WF SP700N, and one had ES faintly scratched into the plastic. It was impossible to tell if it had belonged to him. The pouch was logged and shelved. DNA testing returned inconclusive. Later that year, a conspiracy theory podcast called Trail Shadows aired a 4-part series on Eric's disappearance. The hosts hinted at military experimentation, underground bunkers, and forest surveillance programs. Downloads reached over 1.5 million, but the show offered no credible evidence, only speculation. Detective Hines called the hosts reckless. Still, the episodes brought in new attention, and with it, one peculiar email. It arrived on August 18, 2021. Untraceable IP, no signature, just a 2-line message. Check the ridgeline above the dogwood split. Fall shadows hide things well. The sender was never identified. A follow-up sweep was authorized in September, 2 years to the day since Eric disappeared. Nothing was found. Again. By early 2022, the Shaw family had spent over $74,000 on private search efforts, hired trackers, drone rentals, canine teams. They even employed a forensic anthropologist from Idaho to scan soil samples in a previously unexplored gully. Still, no breakthrough. Hope began to wither. The forest felt endless. Family statement. March 2022. We continue to search for Eric with the same urgency as day 1. If you know something, even if you think it's small, please come forward. We are not giving up. That summer, the original Stack Creek Trail reopened to the public. The yellow caution tape was gone. So were the patrol logs, the tents, and the search grids. All that remained was a laminated flyer on a wooden post, weather-worn, edges curling. Missing, Eric Shaw. But the story wasn't over. Because in July 2022, a hiker's dog unearthed a torn piece of shoe fabric, bright yellow, just 200 yards from the original FLIR anomaly site. And what lay beneath would upend everything. The fabric fragment was small, barely larger than a playing card, but unmistakable. High-visibility yellow, tear-resistant mesh, flecked with dark soil. It matched the upper layer of a Nike Terra Kiger 4, the same model Eric Shaw wore the morning he vanished. Beneath it, investigators unearthed something else, a clump of coarse black hair embedded in root systems just beneath the surface. It wasn't Eric's. Forensic tests confirmed as much. The hair belonged to an unknown male, Caucasian, with partial DNA markers already in CODIS. But that hit, as significant as it was, wouldn't fully connect until late 2022, 3 years after Eric disappeared. In the intervening months, Marion County reopened the case as an active homicide investigation. Detective Valerie Hines was pulled back in. She reviewed the original trail cam footage again, zooming in on the blurred figure behind Eric. This time, using new software, Clear ID Forensic Suite v3.7, the image enhanced just enough to reveal a partial brand logo on the left sleeve, a faded triangle with 2 curved bars. The insignia belonged to a now-defunct wilderness rehabilitation group called Trail Spanner, known for its off-grid camping programs for low-level offenders. The group disbanded in 2015 after financial irregularities and complaints of staff misconduct. One name jumped out, Daniel Voss, a transient staffer who'd worked briefly for Trail Spanner in late 2014. He'd been arrested twice since then, once in 2016 for unlawful camping, and again in 2018 for assaulting a jogger on the Banks-Vernonia State Trail, 40 miles north of Santiam. That case never went to trial. The victim declined to testify. Voss served 6 months in county jail and vanished from public record. Until now. Using DMV records and parole tracking data, Hines located Voss, already in custody at a facility in Clatsop County. He'd been arrested in 2021 for trespassing and battery following an altercation with a hiker near Cannon Beach. Hines requested an interview. Interrogation room transcript, December 2nd, 2022. Hines: Daniel, were you in the Santiam Forest in September 2019? Voss: long pause. Don't remember. Hines: you assaulted a runner before, same pattern, same area. Voss shrugs. People run everywhere. Hines: we found your DNA at Stack Creek. Voss, eyes narrow. Not possible. Hines: it was under a shoe. Buried. Voss, silent. He requested an attorney immediately after that exchange. No confession, no denial. But the match was real. Partial DNA on the shoe fragment. Boot tread near the drawstring pouch. Later matched to a discontinued Red Wing work boot, identical to a pair Voss wore at the time of his 2018 arrest. Still, prosecutors hesitated. No body, no eyewitness. Just implication. Then came the final link. A retired SAR diver named Paul Dresden had been following the case quietly since 2019. In early 2023, he came forward with a forgotten journal, a field log he kept during the original search. In it, he described a shallow depression just west of Ridge 2A, logged and flagged, but never excavated due to a storm. Dresden marked it with a biodegradable tape tag, the kind designed to fade in weeks. The tape, of course, was gone, but the GPS coordinates remained. On March 15, 2023, Marion County returned to the forest, this time with ground-penetrating radar. Device deployed. GSSI Utility Scan DF, dual-frequency radar depth penetration, Schwaster 4 FT and forest loam anomaly. Detected. 3.6 FT below surface, irregular mass, 5 FTX 2.2 FT. Excavation began at 12:14 p.m. At 12:57 p.m., they found him. Comment, hope, if you kept believing. The soil came away in dark clumps, pine needles, damp loam, pockets of sour-smelling air that hadn't escaped in years. Deputies worked quietly, shovels scraping in short, precise arcs, as the forest around them held its breath. At 12:57 p.m., one of them stopped. Got something, he said. Cloth. It was a corner of synthetic fabric, weather-worn, threadbare, blue-gray in color. Investigators paused excavation and called in the forensic anthropologist and the county coroner. With gloved hands, they peeled back the earth carefully, layer by layer. Within 20 minutes, the full outline was visible. A human body, curled inward, partially mummified by time and pressure. No coffin, no shroud, just dirt, bone, and silence. The remains were clothed in a tattered compression shirt and running shorts, consistent with what Eric Shaw had been wearing when he disappeared. One sock remained intact. There were fractures on both ribs and the left orbital bone. Cause of death? Undetermined. But it was clear. Blunt force trauma had occurred. Forensic note, site log, March 15, 2023. Grave depth, 3.62 FT. Body orientation, lateral recumbent, fetal position, no scavenging evident, personal ID pending, but high visual consistency with Eric Shaw. They found no phone, no wallet, and no second shoe. But they did find one crucial item, a fragment of a running bib, number 289, tucked beneath the hip, the same number Eric had worn at a university 10K race 3 days before he disappeared. By the next day, dental records confirmed what many already knew. The remains belonged to Eric Shaw. Sheriff Don Kirsch stood behind a podium at the Marion County Justice Center on March 17, 2023, facing a row of microphones and a wall of quiet cameras. Press conference. Transcript excerpt. Kirsch: we are here to confirm that the remains discovered near Ridge 2A earlier this week have been positively identified as Eric Shaw. The cause and manner of death remain under investigation, but this marks a turning point in our pursuit of justice. Q: will you charge Daniel Voss with murder? Kirsch: we are reviewing all forensic evidence with the district attorney. DNA evidence places Mr. Voss at or near the scene. This is an active and ongoing case. DNA tests had advanced since 2019. Skin cells recovered from the drawstring pouch, the shoelace fragment, and the buried hair shaft all matched Voss. now sitting in custody under a 2021 sentence unrelated to Eric's case. A forensic entomologist from the Oregon State Crime Lab used insect activity and decomposition patterns to estimate the burial date, between September 8th and 10th, 2019, consistent with the initial timeline, consistent with Eric vanishing without a trace. The shoe found in 2022 had been planted, not dropped during a struggle. It was buried carefully, months later. A decoy. That detail chilled investigators. "This wasn't a panicked dump site," said Detective Hines. "It was intentional, controlled. Whoever did this knew the woods, and knew how to mislead." The press called it a decades-old mystery solved. Prematurely. For the Shaw family, it was only the beginning of grief's second chapter. Carla Shaw addressed the public in a trembling voice. "We are grateful Eric is no longer lost, but we are not finished. He deserves answers. He deserves justice." Daniel Voss remained silent. Through his public defender, he denied involvement. No confession, no remorse. But the DA now had DNA, motive, timeline, and a body. The grand jury convened in April. Comment, hope, if you believe justice is still possible. April 2023. With Eric Shaw's remains confirmed and Daniel Voss named as the prime suspect, investigators turned to a final lead, a nearly forgotten piece of evidence, the drawstring pouch buried with Eric's running gear. It had appeared mundane, but under ultraviolet laser microscopy, analysts discovered something invisible to the naked eye. Fine particles of mineralized silt with an unusually high diatom concentration. It matched only one location in the region, a submerged ravine downstream from Eric's last known GPS ping. The site had been skipped in 2019 due to flash flooding. Now it was the focus of a forensic dive operation. Operation Log, April 19, 2023. Teams, Marion County Dive Unit and Portland Fire Bureau Divers Tools, Deep Trekker DTG-3 ROV, OTS Powercom 3000D Diver Comms, Kongsberg M3 Sonar Site, Stack Creek Sink Ravine, Depth 27 FT, Limited Visibility. Sonar detected an object at the bottom, angular, dense, wedged in stone. A remotely operated vehicle descended, claw arm deployed. It surfaced at 14:52 hours. Inside, a bloated canvas hiking pack. Contents logged on site. Rusted multi-tool, paracord bundle, torn tarp, empty lighter, illegible water-damaged note, and a Ziploc bag containing a blood-stained rag. Lab analysis confirmed it. Eric's blood on the cloth. Alongside it, DNA from a second individual, a direct match to Daniel Voss. But the bag held something else, a stitched nameplate. D. Voss, TS Instructor, 2014. He'd carried this into the forest, either as preparation or after. Detectives now had motive, timeline, victim, forensic linkage, and location consistency. Within days, Voss was charged with second-degree murder, evidence tampering, unlawful disposal of human remains. He pled not guilty. His defense called the evidence circumstantial, but prosecutors had one more damning detail. The blood-soaked rag had been sealed, protected, hidden deep beneath the waterline. Not dumped, not lost, preserved. It suggested intent and knowledge. In a quiet room at the Marion County Coroner's Office, Carla and Dean Shaw stood over the final evidence box. Dean held the Ziploc bag in both hands, trembling. "He didn't vanish," he said quietly. "Someone took him, hid him. And now, we brought him back." The Shaw family buried Eric on May 22, 2023, 357 days after he disappeared. Friends ran 6 miles in silence that morning, wearing bibs marked 289. Eric's number. In the final press conference, Sheriff Kirsch addressed the public plainly. "Eric's story is one of clarity won slowly, painfully, but it reminds us of something vital. What's hidden can still be found. What's buried can rise." Eric Shaw vanished on a trail he trusted, in daylight, in routine, with nothing but momentum ahead of him. And yet, beneath the terrain and time, his memory endured. What cracked this case wasn't one miracle moment, but years of pressure, patience, and people refusing to forget. His parents never stopped. Volunteers combed through silence. Dive crews descended where no one else dared, and in the end, the forest gave him back.